Just before 6 in the morning on Sunday, April the 19th, 2026, a phone call came into Shreveport Police Dispatch. It was not a neighbor calling. It was not someone driving past the street. The call came from the roof of a house on the 300 block of West 79th Street in the Cedar Grove neighborhood of Shreveport, Louisiana. Someone had made it onto that roof and called 911 to report that a suspect inside that house had just shot people. Officers rolled toward that address. When the first units arrived and walked through that front door, what they found stopped them where they stood. 8 children, 3 boys, 5 girls. The oldest was 11 years old. The youngest had just turned 3. 7 of them were found inside the house. The 8th was on the roof of a neighboring structure. He had tried to get out. He did not survive. The man responsible was already gone. He had visited 2 other locations in Shreveport before arriving at these children. By the time the sun came fully up over Cedar Grove, he would be dead in a neighboring parish, killed after a vehicle pursuit and a confrontation with law enforcement. He was not a stranger. There was no break-in, no random threat. These children knew him. 7 of those 8 children called him Dad. The 8th was a cousin blood, family, one of his own in every way that mattered. This is the story of what happened in Shreveport, Louisiana on April the 19th, 2026. This is the story of 8 children whose names deserve to be said out loud and never forgotten. And this is the story of every warning sign that existed before that morning, every moment the system had a chance to change what happened and did not take it. Stay with me, because this story matters. Eight children. That number is easy to say. Too easy. Because numbers don't laugh. Numbers don't argue over cartoons. Numbers don't run through a house on a Saturday afternoon. Numbers don't have names. So before anything else, before timelines, before explanations, we stop here. And we say who they were. Not how they died, but that they lived. They came from 3 families. The Snows, the Pughs, and the Elkins. Different last names. One home. One night that tied all of them together. Sarah Snow was 11 years old. The oldest in the house. The one younger kids look for without thinking. When they're scared, when they need help, when they just want someone to sit next to. Marcaden Pugh was 10. Old enough to understand more than people realize. Old enough to remember everything. Layla Pugh was 7. At that age, where the world is still soft. School days, small friendships, simple joys. Layla Pugh was 6 years old. 6. Darian Snow was also 6. Same age, same world. Cartoons, games, laughter that fills a room. Braylon Snow was 5. Just beginning. The age where everything is still new. Shamar Elkins was 5 too. Same age. Same small world. But one that should have been safe. And then, the youngest. Jayla Elkins, 3 years old, still learning full sentences, still being carried from room to room, still living in a world where everything is supposed to be protected. 7 of these children were his. The 8th, a cousin. But in families like this, that line doesn't matter. They were all his. 3 boys, 5 girls, ages 3 to 11. By the time the sun came up that morning, they had already been turned into numbers. Case numbers, statistics, entries in a report, but that's not where their story starts. It starts in that house, with noise, with movement, with life. With 8 children, who should have woken up the next day. 2 women survived that morning. One, their mother. The other, connected by blood and family. Both left carrying something no report can fully capture. And there was one more, a 13-year-old boy, who made it to the roof. Who called for help? Who survived? No child should ever have to make that call, and no child should ever have to remember what he saw. Across the street, a neighbor would later say, the children played outside every evening. That the night before, everything looked normal. A man on the porch, kids in the yard, a quiet street. Nothing out of place, nothing to warn what was coming. That was the last time. Anyone saw them alive. To understand the morning of April the 19th, you have to understand the man at the center of it, or at least who the people around him believed him to be. Shamar Elkins was 31 years old, born in Shreveport, raised in Shreveport, known across Shreveport. He had never lived anywhere else, and in a city like Shreveport, that means something. It means roots. It means a name people recognize. It means a history that trails behind you wherever you go. From 2013 to 2020, Shamar Elkins served in the Louisiana Army National Guard. His roles had formal titles: Signal Support Systems Specialist and Fire Support Specialist. He was never deployed overseas. He completed his service and left as a private, with no combat record and no commendations. But he wore that uniform for 7 years. And to the people around him, that uniform meant something. It meant structure. It meant accountability. It meant a man who showed up and did what was required of him. That was the version of Shamar Elkins that his community knew. He was a father 7 times over, 7 children, 3 boys and 4 girls born from him across multiple relationships: the Elkins children, the Pugh children, the Snow children. Different mothers, different households at times, but all of them tied to him, all of them part of the extended family web that spent weekends in and out of that house on West 79th Street. His wife was the mother of most of those children. A second woman, his girlfriend, was at a separate address across the neighborhood. The world Shamar Elkins had built was complicated. Multiple households, multiple relationships, multiple children depending on him. On paper, his life looked full. On social media, the picture he presented was one of a devoted father. On April the 5th, just 2 weeks before the killings, he posted an Easter photo on Facebook himself and his 7 children, fresh out of a church service, all dressed up. He wrote the caption himself: "Happy Easter. Had a wonderful time at church for the first time with all my kids. What a blessed day." 4 days later, April the 9th, he posted again. This time it was not a photo. It was a prayer he had reposted from another page. It began, "Dear God, today I ask you to help me guard my mind and my emotions." The prayer went on to ask for strength to reject depression, anger, anxiety, and panic. Most people who saw it scrolled past. The Easter photos were right there next to it on the feed. A man asking God for peace in one post and standing in church with his children in the next does not look like a man approaching a breaking point. He looks like a man trying. The day before everything happened, Saturday, April the 18th, he posted one more time, a photo of himself and his oldest daughter at a burger restaurant. Just the 2 of them. He captioned it with a laughing emoji and wrote that he had taken his oldest on a one-on-one date. She was eating a burger. He was smiling, laughing emojis. The kind of post that gets 35 likes and disappears from the algorithm by nightfall. His oldest daughter had no idea what was coming. Neither did anyone who double-tapped that photo. Here is what most of Shamar Elkins's community did not know, and what the legal system had already documented and walked away from. In March of 2019, Elkins was arrested on 2 charges: illegal use of a weapon and carrying a firearm on school property. According to the police report from that incident, Elkins said he had walked outside to meet a friend being picked up in a car. Someone in that car pulled a weapon on him, and he responded by firing 5 rounds at the vehicle as it drove away. 5 rounds fired in the direction of a departing vehicle 300 feet from a Shreveport high school with students present. He pleaded guilty in October of 2019 to the illegal use of weapons charge. The firearm on school property charge was dismissed entirely. The sentence handed down by the court was 18 months of probation, no prison time, no mandatory mental health evaluation, no weapons restriction monitoring. He walked out of that courtroom and went back to his life. For the next 7 years, Shamar Elkins lived in the same neighborhood, raised the same children, and maintained access to the same kinds of weapons. No follow-up from the court. No mandatory check-ins beyond standard probation terms. No one went back to ask whether a man who had discharged a firearm near a school full of children might one day become a threat to those closest to him. Shreveport police spokesperson Corporal Chris Bordelon confirmed after the April 19th killings that police had no prior record of domestic violence involving Shamar Elkins. The 2019 weapons charge was on file. The 2016 driving while intoxicated conviction was on file, but as far as law enforcement was concerned, there was no domestic pattern to flag. And then there was the custody case. Shamar and his wife were separating. The marriage was ending, and with 7 children between them, the legal process of separating their lives was not going to be simple or quiet. A court date had been scheduled. The date of that custody hearing was April the 20th, 2026, the Monday morning directly after the Sunday everything happened. He was 1 day away from a court date that would formally restructure his access to his own children. 1 day. Researchers and domestic violence investigators have long documented that the period of separation is the most statistically dangerous time in an abusive or controlling relationship. It is the moment when a person who needs control the most feels it slipping entirely. The combination of a custody hearing, a crumbling marriage, a prior weapons offense, and a mental health post asking God for help, managing anger and anxiety, all of it was present, all of it was visible. None of it was connected in time. That is not a coincidence. That is a pattern, and it is a pattern the system had already encountered once before in a courtroom in October of 2019 and chose not to pursue. Saturday, April the 18th, 2026. The last full day those 8 children were alive started the way most Saturdays do in a house full of kids. The children were home, running between rooms, watching something on a tablet, arguing over who picked the last movie. Saria, the 11-year-old, probably keeping an eye on the younger ones the way she always did. Jayla, 3 years old, probably underfoot. Kadarian and Kayla, both 6, doing whatever 6-year-olds do on a Saturday. Braylon and Shayla, both 5, somewhere in the middle of it all. Markaden, 10, at that age where you are old enough to want your own space but still young enough to be pulled into the group. That same afternoon, Shamar Elkins was across town with his oldest daughter at a burger restaurant. He was posting about it online, laughing emojis, a dad on a one-on-one outing. From the outside, there was nothing to read into it. Back home, his wife was there, the teenage cousin was there. The block outside was doing what Cedar Grove always did on a Saturday neighbors out, kids in yards, the slow wind down of an ordinary weekend. Fred Montgomery, the 71-year-old neighbor across the street, saw Shamar on the porch that evening. He waved. Shamar waved back. As the night came in, the children went to bed. In houses like this one, full ones, loud ones, that process takes a while. Kids settle into the same rooms, cousins curled up next to siblings, the younger ones going down first, the older ones staying up just a little longer than they should, the way it always goes. Their mother was in the home, the teenage cousin was in the home. Outside, Cedar Grove went quiet, one porch light at a time. And somewhere in Shreveport that night, Shamar Elkins was making a decision. Not in a moment of rage, not in a sudden snap. The evidence of what came next, 2 weapons, multiple locations, a sequenced route points not to impulse but to planning, a decision that had already been reached before the children went to sleep. Before we go into what happened, I want to ask something of you. If you are not already subscribed to this channel, take 10 seconds right now and hit that button. We tell these stories because 8 names like Saria, Markaden, Layla, Kayla, Kadarian, Braylon, Shayla, and Jayla deserve more than a scroll past. Subscribe, turn on the bell, and stay with me because the next part of this story is the part Shreveport is never going to be able to forget. 5 in the morning, Sunday, April the 19th. Cedar Grove is asleep. The first location was not West 79th Street. It was Harrison Street between Wallace Avenue and Bernstein Avenue, the address where Shamar Elkins' girlfriend lived. According to police, Elkins went there first. He shot her multiple times. She was critically injured but alive when officers eventually reached her. He left her there and got back into his vehicle. Then he drove Harrison Street to the 300 block of West 79th Street, roughly a quarter of a mile, about 5 minutes at that hour with no traffic. A quarter of a mile between 2 women and 8 sleeping children. He walked into the house on West 79th Street. His wife was there, the mother of most of his children. He shot her. She survived, but with a serious injury to her head. Then he kept moving through the house. The children were asleep. According to Shreveport police spokesperson Corporal Chris Bordelon, most of the children were shot where they lay. 7 of them were found inside the house. A small caliber handgun was used throughout this portion of the incident. 8 names. The same 8 names we said at the beginning of this video. Saria Snow, 11. Markaden Pugh, 10. Layla Pugh, 7. Kayla Pugh, 6. Kadarian Snow, 6. Braylon Snow 5, Shayla Elkins 5, Jayla Elkins 3. One child made it onto the roof of a neighboring structure. He was the one who called 911. He was shot on that roof. He did not survive. A 13-year-old who was also present escaped by jumping from the roof. He sustained broken bones but survived. He saw what happened inside that house. He will carry it for the rest of his life. By the time officers arrived, Shamar Elkins had already left the West 79th Street address. Near the intersection of Linwood Avenue and West 79th Street, he carjacked a vehicle, took it from a person nearby, and drove north out of Shreveport. Behind him, 2 women were fighting to survive in 2 separate locations. 8 children were dead. A teenager was on the ground with broken bones. And the first officer to walk through that front door on West 79th Street was about to see something that would stay with him for the rest of his career. Louisiana law enforcement picked up the pursuit as Elkins crossed from Shreveport into Bosher Parish. They knew who he was. They knew what he had just done. The chase ended on the 400 block of Brompton Lane near Longacre Drive in Bossier City. Officers confronted him. Elkins produced what law enforcement described as a rifle-style pistol, an assault-style weapon, different from the small-caliber handgun used at West 79th Street. He left his house that morning carrying 2 weapons. This was not something that happened in the heat of the moment. Shots were exchanged. When the gunfire stopped, Shamar Elkins was dead. 3 officers had discharged their weapons. Louisiana State Police was brought in to conduct an independent investigation, as is standard procedure anytime an officer is involved in a fatal shooting. Investigators confirmed at the time that it remained unclear whether Elkins died from police gunfire or by his own hand. No officers were harmed in that final confrontation. That was the only thing close to good news that came out of Cedar Grove that day. The scene that greeted Shreveport officers that Sunday morning was not one scene. It was 4. Harrison Street, West 79th Street, the carjacking location at Linwood Avenue, and Brompton Lane in Bossier City, each one requiring its own response, its own forensic team, its own documentation. Shreveport Police Chief Wayne Smith stood at a press conference that morning. He told reporters he did not know what to say, that his heart was taken aback, that he could not begin to understand how something like this could happen. Chief Smith had been in law enforcement for a long time. He had never seen anything like this. Corporal Chris Bordelon, the department's spokesperson, delivered the formal statement. He confirmed the sequence. He confirmed it was a domestic incident. He confirmed that Elkins had shot his girlfriend first, then his wife, then the children. He confirmed that 1 child had survived on the roof and was transported to hospital. He confirmed 2 women were in critical condition. And then he called the scene what it was: disgusting and evil. He had been a cop a long time. Those were the words he chose. Inside the house, detectives began the methodical work of reconstructing the sequence of events, room by room. Which rooms were entered, which doors showed evidence of being opened or closed, where each piece of physical evidence landed. The job of sequencing a crime scene like this, one, multiple victims, a single location, a single weapon, is painstaking. Every piece of it matters in building a complete record of what happened. Detectives also confirmed through physical evidence that Shamar Elkins carried 2 weapons that morning: the small-caliber handgun used inside the West 79th Street house and the assault-style rifle pistol he had on him when law enforcement confronted him in Bossier City. 2 different weapons. 2 different locations, carried together from the beginning. The investigators' conclusion was clear. This was not improvised. The Caddo Parish Coroner's Office moved in to take responsibility for the 8 children. 8 official identifications had to be made. The process of identification in a mass casualty event falls in the hardest way possible to the families. In this case, it fell to the mothers. 2 mothers, the women who had just survived being shot that same morning, had to go through the process of confirming their children. The names were recorded and released: Soraya Snow, Kadarian Snow, Braylon Snow, Marcaden Pugh, Layla Pugh, Kayla Pugh, Shayla Elkins, Jayla Elkins. Counseling and mental health services were arranged for the Shreveport police officers who responded to the West 79th Street scene that morning. That detail, buried in the official police statement, says everything that the department could not put into words about what those officers walked into. By Sunday afternoon, Shreveport was trying to process something it had no framework for. CBS News reporter Jason Allen filed his report live from the scene, speaking to anchor Jerica back at the studio. He reported that 10 people in total had been shot, that 8 of them, all children, had been killed, and that a survivor of the shooting had escaped and called police, which is how officers were directed to the address. Allen confirmed that Louisiana State Police was also involved in the investigation and that the gunman was dead. City Councilman Grayson Boucher put the scale of what happened into a number that stopped people cold. The killings had more than doubled Shreveport's homicide count for the entire year of 2026. In a single morning, 1 man, 1 house, 8 children. More than half of the city's murders for the whole year committed before 6 o'clock on a Sunday morning. Shreveport Mayor Tom Arsenault spoke at a press conference. He called it a tragic situation. He said it may be the worst Shreveport had ever experienced. He said the entire community was mourning. And then he said what mayors say at moments like this, because there is nothing else to say, that his heart went out to the families. Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry posted on social media that he and his wife Sharon were heartbroken over the situation and were praying for everyone affected. U.S. Senator Bill Cassidy released a statement saying his heart was with the Shreveport-Bossier community as they mourned the innocent lives lost, and that he wished the surviving victims a complete and swift recovery. Congressman Cleo Fields, whose congressional district covers Cedar Grove, also reacted to the shooting publicly. He called it heartbreaking. Councilman James Green also stood at the scene that day and spoke to those who had gathered. Elected officials, community leaders, neighbors, all of them searching for words adequate to what had happened on their street, in their city. This was also documented as the deadliest mass shooting in the United States since January of 2024, when a gunman killed 8 people in a Chicago suburb. That context, the national frame, tells you how rare this scale of loss is, even in a country that has become far too familiar with mass shootings. 8 children in one morning, 1 man, 1 city that will never be the same. At the prayer vigil that formed on the streets of Cedar Grove that Sunday evening, people lit candles, 8 of them, at least, 1 for each child. The block that Fred Montgomery had lived on since 1991, the block he called quiet, the block where kids played in the yard every evening, held those candles in the dark, while Shreveport tried to figure out how to carry what it had just been handed. Here is what keeps coming back when you look at this case from the outside. In 2019, a court in Caddo Parish processed a case in which a 31-year-old man had fired 5 rounds in the direction of a departing vehicle 300 feet from a Shreveport high school. Students were present. The man pleaded guilty. The sentence was 18 months of probation. The firearm charge tied to school property was dismissed. He walked. For the next 7 years, that man remained in Cedar Grove. He remained part of the same community, the same school system, the same neighborhood where his 7 children went to bed every night. He retained access to firearms. His 2019 guilty plea generated no ongoing monitoring, no mandatory intervention, and no mechanism that would flag him as a risk when a custody court date was added to his calendar in 2026. Over 30% of crimes in Shreveport are domestic in nature. Over 30% of the city's murders are domestic. That is not a Shreveport anomaly. Domestic violence and intimate partner homicide are among the most under-addressed crisis categories in American law enforcement. The data exists. The patterns are known. The intervention infrastructure, in most places, remains underfunded and underdeployed. Researchers who study intimate partner violence have identified specific escalation factors: prior weapons offenses, pending separation proceedings, custody disputes, social isolation, and documented mental health distress. Shamar Elkins had multiple items on that list. His 2019 weapons conviction is on record. His custody court date was the following morning. His April 9th post about managing depression and anxiety is publicly documented. The combination of those factors, visible, documented, accessible, did not trigger any intervention. None of this is said to assign blame to any individual officer, judge, or prosecutor. The system that processed Shamar Elkins' 2019 case functioned the way most such systems function. It resolved the immediate charge. It moved on. The structural gap, the absence of any long-term risk reassessment mechanism for individuals with weapons, offenses, and escalating domestic circumstances is not unique to Shreveport. It exists in jurisdictions across the country. That does not make the outcome any less preventable. It makes it more important that the gap be named clearly so that something can be done about it. 8 children went to sleep on a Saturday night in a neighborhood called Cedar Grove. 8 children did not wake up. Before we say their names one final time, if you are in a relationship right now where the threats are escalating, where the control is tightening, where the anger is getting louder, please make a call. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, completely free and confidential. The number is 1-800-799-7233. Text the word START to 88788. It does not matter how small the situation feels. It does not matter what time it is. Make the call. If you are a friend, a family member, a neighbor, do not assume the Easter photo means the house is safe. Do not assume the daddy-daughter date post means everything is fine. Sometimes the clearest cry for help is the quietest post on a random Tuesday afternoon. If something feels wrong, say something. Now say their names. Soraya Snow, 11 years old. Mark Hayden Pugh, 10 years old. Layla Pugh, 7 years old. Kayla Pugh, 6 years old. Kadarian Snow, 6 years old. Braylon Snow, 5 years old. Shayla Elkins, 5 years old. Jayla Elkins, 3 years old. 3 boys, 5 girls, ages 3 to 11. Cedar Grove, Shreveport, Louisiana. April the 19th, 2026. Before you go, 3 things. First, if you are not subscribed, subscribe now and ring that notification bell. We tell these stories so that these names do not become a statistic, so that the signs no one caught the first time get caught the next time. Second, drop a candle emoji in the comments below, one for each of these 8 children. Their names deserve to be read, and your comment keeps this story in front of people who need to see it. Third, share this video. Send it to a friend, a sister, a coworker, a neighbor. You never know whose life a share like that might reach. Tell someone you love that you love them today. Tomorrow is promised to no one, not even to 8 little children in Shreveport, Louisiana.